Hello and welcome back to the X-Files Revisited. We are on to episode 8 of season 5, Kitsunegari. Kitsunegari!
Kitsunegari!
Always have to say it as if you're angry. It's just one of those things. Probably insulting hundreds of thousands, millions of people, but what can we do? Brian. Okay.
Had to go there. Had to go. So this is a sequel to a fan favorite episode. This happens a few times in the history of X-Files. We got one with Toombs. We will get one with Orison. And Pusher. So I think both of our top fives for season 3 featured Pusher. So it was certainly a favourite for us of that season. And we get a sequel. The question is, when you put out an episode that's so good, can you make a sequel to it that lives up to it? Are you best just avoiding the whole issue? But we'll delve into that, obviously.
Absolutely.
But before we do, this might give the game away as to where you sit on it, but we'll see. Where do you think the X-Files fans, or at least the IMDb X-Files fans, rank this episode?
Like you say, it's a fan favourite episode, Pusher. So I'm thinking this is going to appease some fans and annoy other ones, because that's just the nature of sequels in general. And I think I'm going to go for 121.
Oh, 120. You were one out.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, 120. So it's it's right near the mid mark. It's right near the mid range. So this is the 8th episode of season 5. Let's get into it. So hang on. I've just realised I got a bit messed up on my notes then, because the character that we start off on is referred to as Bobby, but that's also the character of the next episode, and I've done notes on both. So I'm like, hang on, hey up.
Which one is this?
Yeah, I've crisscrossed them over, but yeah, okay. So we start off with a character referred to as Bobby, who is doing some physical therapy, and the orderly is very concerned about security. Yes. So we have this kind of female therapist, physical therapist, who's clearly trying to help this guy who's got problems walking, and the security guard that there, he's like, nope. I'm not buying it. This guy's too dangerous. And he's like, he's telling that his partner, who seems like a fresh newbie, he's like, no, do not underestimate this guy, or it'll be the last thing you do. So they take Bobby to his cell, and the orderly gives the young co-worker a lecture about basically not underestimating Robert Modell, and that's when it's revealed just who Bobby is. So if you're a fan of the show, if you've watched it before, you know exactly who it is, and you'd be like, oh. And if you've never seen the show before, you'd be like, huh? All right. Robert Modell. Okay, so we get a red light in, so that it's clearly a button's being pressed in the cell. This is sometime later, and the young guy goes in, and Modell is whispering something, so he gets closer to try and hear what he's saying. It's like, and then we cut from there to the older guy coming back and finding this young guy just kind of banging his head against the wall. And when he asks him where Modell is, he simply says he had to go.
Yeah.
So, so as far as setups go, what do you think?
I like, because I forgot, because between episode 7 and 8 we had a little bit of a break, so I forgot that this was actually a continued episode, and I was like, it wasn't until they were playfully not showing the face of the character, and I was like, what's going on? Why are they doing this? But and then it was like, oh, I realised we're going to go and see Cerulean Blue again. This man. And I kind of like that playful nature. I also like the fact that we've got this guard that's just like, no, like, I don't care if this guy's a drilling vegetable. You do not let anything happen whatsoever. We have to constantly maintain it. And even the sort of young upstart, who is a little bit cocky, seems to stop and take heed of what this man's saying, which I kind of, that's like the trope is the man doesn't listen and then something happens and they escape. But he does pay attention. He has his hand on the pepper spray or whatever, and but just that little he had to go just shows you that Pusher's back. Where's this going to go to? Why now? What's going on? I like it a lot. I think it's fun.
And I think as well it plays on what we know from the previous episode. Like you say, it's kind of like it sets out the stall that, hey, Pusher's back in action, and we know he likes to play games, so it kind of uses that as a setup to say, hey guys, Pusher's back, what's his game this time? And it's just like, all right,
but also as well is the young guard is alive. That's a little bit of a break from Pusher's MO, which kind of throws you up as well.
So, Mulder, Scully, and Skinner brief the team of agents. Scully takes Mulder aside and questions whether he should be leading the investigation, given the fact that Modell's primary target last time was indeed Mulder. So, I mean, it seems kind of perfunctory, but we know Mulder's going to lead the case. There's no doubt in that whatsoever. He's not going to back down, so it's kind of perfunctory. But I like the fact that they actually come out and say that this guy has strange powers almost. It's not like everybody's like laughing or joking at it. They take it quite seriously that this guy has some kind of ability. It's played Skinner's been on the receiving end of it, of course, because last time his secretary was made to beat the crap out of him, so he doesn't want to repeat of that. So he's like, no, we got to catch it. Take Mulder seriously, guys. Come on. Okay, so we go to a convenience store where Todd is behind the counter, kind of sorting his stuff out, and he's watching the news report of escaped convict Robert Patrick Modell when who should walk in the store but Robert Patrick Modell. He reaches for a baseball bat and Modell convinces him that it's a snake and slowly talks him through taking it into the next room and putting it down.
And although the CG isn't great, it's still a really nice. It's a creepy effect. I think it's creepy. I'm not a fan of snakes at the best of time, but just the fact that he's kind of holding this one, I just think it's wonderful. And you just like Modell. He's such a good villain because I think it's so underplayed the way he does things. When he walks in there and he just assesses the situation instantly, and he's just like, isn't that a brown rattler? Just that one comment. He knows exactly what's happening, which I think gives a great counterpart to Mulder, because you can kind of know this guy can see, assess, and act within seconds of walking into a room.
And it's the opposite as well of like Donny Faster, because like our biggest problem with Donny Faster is the fact that this guy walks into a room and 2 seconds after he's been there, there's something rotten in Denmark. It's like how the this woman could be kind of seduced by him is anyone's guess, because he was just creepy as anything. Whereas Modell is like, yeah, you can understand how like people would be taken in by him and stuff, even without his powers. So so we're looking at brain scans with Modell's doctor, and she never has. She says she's never had any problem with him, but Mulder and Scully come in agents come in and tell Mulder and Scully that Modell is on the phone for Mulder, which
and so it begins.
Yeah, I mean, like, I'm not answering the phone to this guy.
Yeah.
The last person we saw who answered the phone to this guy had a heart attack, so it's just like, yeah, I don't think so. I don't think so.
I think that last guy was pretty prone to it, to be honest. Anyway,
yeah,
he just needed a gentle nudge to fall off into that heart attack realm.
Yeah, pretty much. He was pretty wired, wasn't he? Yeah. So Modell, Mulder goes like bizarrely onto the phone, and Modell says he has something he needs Mulder to hear. Scully tells him to hang up, although why she doesn't just hang up herself, like hit that button. Mulder talks tough but hangs up, and they trace the call. So yeah, it's like, personally, for that scene, rather than having, because I know they want to show that Mulder's got the strength to hang up, but the fact of the matter is, this guy has a power, and we've not seen anybody be able to fight it yet. And I just think it would have been better to just have Scully make that decision, because it also really, not that we need it as such, but it does highlight just how dangerous this guy is. The fact that Scully herself would be willing to go, no, I'm shutting this down, boom. But they managed to get the trace anyway. That's personally how I would have played it. So they go to the convenience store, where obviously Todd is still kind of floating about, but Mulder notices that a carbo bar has been eaten. There's just like an empty carbo bar wrapper on the counter, and they find Todd wandering out in the street, saying he had to go. So
wearing his hospital gown and
wearing Modell's hospital gown.
But there's something just there's something creepy about these people who seem almost in a daze, just going like he had to go. Like, I find it quite almost it's quite terrifying.
Yeah, and it is now starting to really dawn on us that Modell isn't killing anyone yet. He's like, what's he playing at? What's going on here? So Modell is inside a house looking at a picture of a woman while a man in cerulean blue paint sits dead on the couch.
Yeah. I mean, the choice of paint color mean like what? Why? Like, I mean, I know it's a callback to the first episode, but I kind of like it, but I don't understand it at the same time.
Well, given where we know this is going, we know that there's no point trying to hide spoilers because we're going to get into them anyway. So
we're
I'll just
talking
say
about it anyway.
But we know that this is Modell's sister. And we know that she will be aware of all the previous cases with regards to Modell. So I would imagine that the whole cerulean blue thing, she either knows about that due to reports or simply by the fact that Modell has told her in prison, because we know that she goes to visit him in prison. She will also know that given Mulder's profiling kind of detail, that would be a very nice detail to throw in there in order to, because all this is about leading Mulder in it. She's trying to lead Mulder and Scully into this trap, as well as offing several people that she believes to be responsible for Modell's death. So I just think the cerulean blue thing is literally a purposeful nod to get Mulder and Scully kind of invested and force it to go a particular way for a while. But so, or it could just be sheer fluke. Maybe they both have a thing for cerulean blue.
Yeah, possibly.
But I doubt that very much. So so we're at the crime scene, and there is a translator who is kind of translating the Japanese symbols that are around. So this man that's dead, he's Japanese, and the writing says fox hunt, which obviously is a very subtle nod to Fox Mulder. So Mulder sees the picture, asks if the victim was married, checks the phone, rings her office. Turns out Linda Bowman is off to a meeting with Fox Mulder. So this is the Japanese, the dead Japanese guy's supposed wife, Linda Bowman. So again, just the whole cerulean blue thing, I think, is just her purposeful way of keeping this all pointed at her brother for now. Because if they believe it to be a brother, then she's got a certain level of control over the situation. So local PD get to Linda's warehouse. One of them gets Modell, but when the FBI get there, he has his gun on his partner. Again, no one's been killed. So I just, when these guys go in after Modell, there's only one outcome, isn't there? And you're just thinking, oh man, guys, come on.
Yeah. And it's like, I'm watching this and I'm like, just stick together. And then they're like, let's split up. And you're like, oh,
Yeah.
oh my God. And as soon as he like tells him to get in the ground, you're like, that's not him. That's his other partner. But a question here is like, so do you think that Modell, so on the hindsight of watching this episode and thinking about it just now, do you think that the wife obviously killed the husband and then set up the meeting with Fox Mulder at the warehouse to kill Fox Mulder or make him do something, and the brothers discovered that and kind of preemptively got there? Yeah. Because at this point it's making it feel as if the brother's there to kill this woman, or Modell's there to kill the woman.
Yeah. That's what it's seeming like. But I think he's there basically to try and stop her destroying his life. Now, whether he's had a change of heart about his previous crimes, I don't know. But I'm guessing it's more the fact that he doesn't want to see his sister go down the same path he did and end up in prison. Not to mention the fact that if you use this ability, you will end up with the same kind of brain cancer that he had. So I think for him, it's all about getting his sister to stop with the crimes, stop using the power, because otherwise you're going to die like I did, or will. And I think it's literally just about that. But it is... There is this thing where it's like, because he's not killing anybody, you do also get the sense that whilst in prison, he, dare I say, has reformed a little bit.
He's been rehabilitated in some way.
Yeah. I mean, like that maybe he has thought about what he's done and all that. And like, I think that's there to read into it.
There's also the fact that he's had a bullet explode half his brain. And he's not really the same person as he once was.
So he does still have his ability. So he is capable of of being his sadistic self. We've already seen him, like, he's controlled those two coppers. It wouldn't have been too much of a hardship to get one to pull the trigger. We've already seen him with the snake guy, and it wouldn't have been too hard to get him to do something. So it does seem like that sadistic streak has somewhat lessened.
Yeah, and also from what I recall about Pusher, it was he had a time scale. He was dying. The tumor was putting pressure on him, and he had a limited time and was looking for an adversary. Now, whatever's happened to him has maybe destroyed the tumor, cut back the tumor, limited it in some way, and he maybe has a longer prognosis now. And he's looking at what did I do? What have I done? I'm driving my sister down the same path as me, which is ultimate destruction. Yeah, that paternal love type of thing that's coming into it.
Yeah, it just feels like this is a slightly different man to what we saw.
Yes,
and not in a that doesn't compute kind of way, but in a kind of, no, this is the guy who's had 2 years to process what he's done, who he is, to kind of start building a relationship with his sister, and that's just it's changed everything for him.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's inference or something else, but you start to think like he's obviously he's either his abilities have come back or he's had them the whole time and hasn't used them for that period of time.
Yeah,
he's chosen to take his punishment and just try and rehabilitate himself.
Yeah,
which is an interesting idea. Thinking that he's just spent 2 years in jail where he could have got out at almost any point.
Yeah.
So, it's interesting, and I also like the fact that it's not just covering the same old ground that we saw in the first one. It's taking the character.
There's a puzzle there, isn't there? There's a puzzle to be solved, and again, because we know this guy is someone who likes to play games. We're like, what's he up to? Why? It's like, what's going on? What's he doing? So yeah. Okay, so Linda shows up for her 12:15. Cut to her crying, having found out about her husband. Skinner says they'll put her in protective custody, and Mulder asks Scully why Modell didn't kill the two cops. So Mulder's already starting to suspect something. He's getting his profiler on.
So that the other two people, you can kind of understand that maybe he just was a bit soft, but this is police officers where he has a particular history with them.
Yeah. Because that was his MO, wasn't it? It's just like he did in police officers. So yeah. So Mulder goes for a wander, and there is that thing as well that he was looking for a worthy adversary, but he got beat.
Yeah. So he's
and maybe because he's got that, he worked on it was a twisted version of it, but he worked on this whole idea of a warrior's code, this thing with the Japanese samurai thing, and maybe when he got beat by this worthy adversary that he found, maybe for him that was enough.
Well, I think, I'm not 100% sure, but I believe that in the samurai kind of way of things, that if you got beat and you were still alive, which is kind of shameful, you went into exile.
Yeah, or you fell on your sword, but I think that had different rules around it. But okay, so where are we? Yeah, Mulder goes for a wander while Modell watches Linda being put into a car. He leaves as Mulder makes his way over. Mulder sees a carbo bar wrapper on the floor of the reception and pulls his gun. So at this point, I don't know if this really felt like a first time watch for you, or whether you remembered seeing this.
No, I don't remember this at all.
Right. So, as you were watching this, at what point did you start to suspect Linda?
I think when we find out about the nun
right
going to visit.
Yeah. Okay.
I think it's after this sequence.
I can't quite remember, but we'll get there when we get there. So,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. Roughly about then.
Yeah.
But at this point, I'm pretty sure that Modell's not really involved, but I don't know what's going on.
Yeah. Okay. So Mulder finds Modell, who forces him to listen to him, but not before he radios Scully. And when Scully and the team rock up, Mulder is walking away, saying he had to go.
Yeah.
So, like, right off the bat there, he had Mulder. He had him. It's like, this is his, his great adversary. He had him. He didn't kill him. Clearly, this is no longer his game. This fox hunt is not his. So, so at this point, it's like, okay, it starts to get pretty obvious from here on out, I think, as to what's going on. Not just yet, but not too soon from now. It's like, okay, so yeah.
But so, it's like you said, it's this is the turning point for me as well, where you're just like 100%. It's not Modell. There's something else going on.
Yeah.
And the sort of blind nature of everybody else who just won't see it.
Yeah.
Like how many times have they chased this person? He's 5 people he could have killed by now.
Yeah.
And killed none of them.
So Mulder is embarrassed, but then he tells Scully that he doesn't think Modell is responsible. Scully thinks Modell has got in his head, but Mulder asks why Linda Bowman.
Yeah.
And I think that's the point at which I was like, okay, yeah. This Linda Bowman, what's she all about? So we go to the FBI safe house where Linda talks about her husband of 2 months. That's the point. It's like once I found out they'd been married for 2 months, I'm like, okay, all right, it's not exactly lifelong commitment, is it? It's like, okay, so Linda talks about her husband of 2 months as someone who was very proud of the Modell case. I don't want to paint him as that, she says. He was true blue. And it's so obvious. And it's like there, you're just like, yeah, there we go. Okay. So, but she's like, she knows just how much everyone else is thinking, no, Robert. But she's also very aware just how clever Mulder is and how he's probably the only one in the room who's going to cotton on to this fact and go down that road of investigation.
Yeah.
And probably aware of how crackers it's going to make him seem as well. Because we have to remember that no one at this point even knows that Modell has a sister.
Yeah.
So, So Mulder tries to convince Scully and Skinner that Linda is responsible. They're not buying it. Skinner suspends him until he feels he can trust his judgment. Linda asks for some water. And just like her whole demeanor at this point has changed, because like we've seen her in the previous scenes where she looked upset and she was getting in the car. You just take her to be the wife that was about to get killed by Modell, and now the whole body language has changed. The way she talks has changed. It's just like, there's something really off about this woman. So, but do you think Skinner's jumped in a bit too soon with the whole suspension thing, or do you think, given what they know about Modell,
I think there's
right to do so?
I think if you're watching this episode on its own, it seems out of place. But when you understand what's happened previously and how quickly things can get out of control, it's understandable.
Yeah.
So, but you need to have that previous knowledge.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. So Mulder speaks to the prison doctor, who says one of the nuns that visited Modell referred to him as a conquered warrior. Then she kills herself before she can ID a photo while she's on the phone to someone. So while they're talking, the phone goes, and then she picks it up and then just decides, I'm going to randomly electrocute myself.
Yeah, and it's like, you know what's coming. I mean, you don't know how it's going to come, but you know something's coming, and just it's the one point where Mulder just seems to like tune out almost. For a little moment.
Yeah. But for me, this is actually the creepiest part of the episode. I think a lot of the other stuff is quite playful, but here it's just that notion of one, being sadistic enough if you had the power to make someone do this, but also just, again, that zombie-like state of being so out of control that you would do this to yourself. And the way it all just happens really like nonchalant, like it's just the most natural thing in the world to electrocute myself in this moment.
But the fact that it's just in our office as well is just weird. We have the main breaker in your psychologist office.
Modell rocks up to the safe house in the back of a police car, tells the guard to go home. He goes into the room where Linda sits, then locks the door. So, dun, dun, dun. It's like at this point, it's like, are these like two pushers that are now like locked in a battle against each other? That's what I'm thinking at that point. I'm kind of like,
because I was leaning towards, like, the scanners almost.
They
don't tolerate each other. They want to battle.
Highlander,
there can be only one.
Because I was thinking, why has Modell given up on Mulder? Why is he no longer battling him? And like in my mind, I'm like, the only reason he would do that is if he found a worthier adversary. Mulder calls Scully, tells her what happened, asks why no one is picking up at the safe house. So we cut from there to Skinner.
Can I just quickly jump in there? There's like a good bit of acting with the Scully there, where it's like the oh crap moment where it's just facial. She's on the phone. It's just, you see everything just drop as if to go, oh, we've messed up.
Pretty much.
And it's just like, I love these little like fraction moments where everything's just said in a facial expression.
So Skinner sees no one around at the safe house while the phone rings. He starts to make his way down the corridor, and then he realizes, like, there's no guards around here. Everyone seems to have gone. So he barges into Linda's room and shoots Modell. There we go. So
I've got a gun.
I've got a gun. I like the fact that he's not dicking around, basically. He's like, no, I know how dangerous this guy is. I'm not going to let him talk. Boom. So it's just, that's that. So Mulder grills Skinner, tells Scully it's Linda. Scully is still skeptical and says, give me a call when you think... Mulder says, give me a call when you think I've come to my senses. So it's literally team division, Team Mulder or Team Skinner and Scully.
Yes. And the only thing I find a bit odd about this sequence is Skinner can't believe that there's not been a gun found. He's like steadfast on, I saw a gun. There is a gun there. I don't know. I thought he was more on the understanding of what Modell's powers were.
Well, I think he is, but it's just, it's hard to deny your senses, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, if you've seen something, even if you know that this guy has this ability, if you've seen someone with a gun, how do you just unsee that? How do you just say to yourself, yeah, it wasn't real?
Yeah.
And that's one of the things with this guy as a villain, is that it does play with the idea of like, how can you trust your senses? How can you, it's like being in the Matrix with this guy.
Yeah.
So we go to a medical center where Mulder Mulder is asked to step out by a nurse. He's just kind of looking at Modell's lifeless body.
Yeah.
And then, so he's asked to step out by a nurse. I say nurse, it's actually Linda with the word nurse written on.
I love it. I absolutely love it. Yeah.
So she talks Modell to death when he seems to be in pain.
Yeah. So you said that the electrocution sequence was terrifying. This was terrifying for me because she's literally telling him to stop beating his heart, which I think is just. I mean, that's horrifying. Horrifying.
Yeah. Okay. So just before this, he asks her to stop what she's doing, and I think it's his last kind of will in life is to go out trying to protect his sister, and so we know now she is clearly the villain of the piece. What do you think about how do you feel about, because I think a lot of the problems fans of Pusher will have with this one would probably revolve around the fact that Pusher isn't really the main villain and gets taken out, supplanted, if you will, by a new villain. And that's like in literary terms, that's kind of it's a bit of a no-no in it for fans. It's like you build up a great villain like a Moriarty. It's like having Moriarty being taken out by a new villain and then suddenly, or it's like having Joker being taken out by.
But I think it fits perfectly with the character of Modell. He talks about being a samurai, a warrior. He sticks to that whole ethos. Once he's beaten, he has been beaten. That's just the end of it for him. He has that fraternal love of discovering he's a new family member, and wants to stop them from making the mistakes that he has made. I think it's a perfect evolution of the character. He's not constantly coming back looking for vengeance. He's living to that warrior code that he had.
Yeah, you have to give them something different to do. And it's like, I feel like that's kind of one of the problems with Tombs as the follow-up to Squeeze, is that it didn't really do enough to separate itself. It was just like business as usual. Here, and as well, you have to completely look at Modell from the terms of how he sees himself, which is, again, this samurai warrior. Well, a Ronin. He saw himself as a Ronin, which is a samurai without a master. And the reason he went down that road, if we looked at Mulder's profiling in that episode, was because he was a loner. He had no family. He had no wife, girlfriend. He lived on his own. He was dying, and this was a guy who felt like he had nothing. He felt like he was a loser, basically, and that's why he went down the road that he did. So to learn in these intervening years that he has family, that's kind of given him this new sense of purpose. It's kind of reinvigorated his will to stick around. And so to me, it all makes perfect sense, and in a really good way. That's character driven, that's logical, so I do like it.
But think how tedious this would have been if he escapes and does exactly what he did in the first episode. Just retreading old ground, and it would have been frustrating, it would have been dull, it would have been repetitive, it offered nothing new. This offers nothing new and tries something. I think it succeeds as well.
It would have been more. it would have suffered more as well from the comparison. Like if you're going to do the same thing again, then you instantly hold yourself up to comparison to the original, and the original's always going to win because it's like, well, it's original. This is it's the same, but we've seen it. So yeah, I like it. So we go to the Bowman warehouse. Oh, hang on. Sorry, no, I've jumped the gun a bit there. Mulder finds the nurse badge with an address written on the back, which takes us to the Bowman warehouse where Mulder hears Scully. He finds her, and she tells him he was right and that Linda is making her do this. Then she shoots herself in the head. Yeah, that's commitment. That is.
Yep.
It's like, is it? Yeah. So Linda then appears, saying she's actually Scully. Then she shoots someone behind Mulder, the real Linda Bowman. And her kind of last words that we hear as she's on the floor bleeding out are, "You think you can hold me?" So yeah, I thought when I first saw this, I thought that Linda Bowman had shot herself.
Right.
I thought she'd shot herself in the head, but as Scully, in order to.
I don't know how entirely everything works. So I don't know if the fact that if she shot herself and died, if that would break the illusion.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't answer. But
I think it would. I think it would. So yeah, it wouldn't make sense.
But I love how Scully starts rhyming off things that only Scully would know about Mulder.
Yeah.
Kind of, he still can't listen to it.
Yeah. Again, it's that thing. It's like, how do you deny your senses? Like it's just for us, the audience, it's easy because we know what the truth is. We're seeing all the parts. But if you were that character in that moment, all of your senses are telling you this is true. This is what I'm seeing. This is what I'm hearing. This is what I'm feeling. How do you just deny that? It's like, I think it'd be a lot harder than people might give credit for when they're watching something like this. I think it's very easy to say, "Oh, come on, Mulder, you know that's not Scully. Oh, come on, Mulder, you know that's Linda." It's like, yeah, it is very easy to say that because we know it. But when you it just, I think it'd be harder than people give it credit for. So we're at the debrief, and Modell and Bowman, it turns out, were twins.
Yeah.
Skinner tells Mulder he was right and that he prevailed. He won. And Mulder's final words are, "Then how come I feel like I lost?" It's kind of a bittersweet victory for Mulder. Why do you think that is?
Oh, do you know what? I'm not entirely sure.
Do you think it's because, and this is just me surmising, as I say, do you think that Mulder in some way gained a respect for the fact that Modell had changed, had found that thing that he'd been looking for, and that perhaps he regrets in some way that they weren't able to work on that and bring them together, and now we've got a dead man and a warped sister that's also kind of
possibly. But then there's also the fact that even though he's got evidence in front of him, none of his peers will listen to him as well, and he's kind of pushed aside. They don't judge that he's got the ability to finish this case, and they don't buy in as well. So that's got to have some kind of detrimental effect at the same time. The fact that the people closest to you don't, in this case, judge your judgment.
Yeah. I
I
just
don't know.
think
I don't know.
I just think that it's a lot. There's a lot of outcomes here that are a bit depressing. As you know, as a human being, as an investigator, as a like his friends didn't trust him. Modell turned out not to be the bad guy, even though everybody judged him as the bad guy. They missed the mark on the sister. Yeah, it just feels like the whole thing's they solved the case, but it was all a bit like.
And also, like you say, like not being able to trust the senses, he did see Scully die in front of him, which has been a threat throughout much of the past season.
Yeah.
Which maybe he just can't scrub that from his mind either. I don't know.
Yeah.
It would have been interesting to see a follow up to this episode, like in a season or two.
Yeah, I'd say bring this woman back for a film. I'd say that'd make a good movie, I think. But yeah, wrap up and score.
Yeah, I like Kitsunegari. I think it's really kind of fun. It takes characters that we know, but really evolves them. They don't just tread the same ground. I think it's trying to say some interesting things. I do think it's a more entertaining X-Files episode rather than a sort of thinking episode. But I think it's one of those ones as well that on reflection definitely has more to it than what I first gathered while watching it. Looking back at certain scenes when you've got the sister going to the warehouse, like the picture that is one thing. It's definitely something else. It'd be interesting to watch these two episodes back to back, almost just to see how they kind of play together. I think it's highly interesting. I think it's one you could easily write off as well as not being great when if you're switching off to it and not engaging with what's happening, because a lot of the things you're gathering from this episode is due to what you've picked up in the first episode, the whole warrior ethos, and you're carrying that forward, and it's filling in a lot of the blanks here. But I like it. I don't know what to give it. I think this season has been so great that I'm probably going to give this a 4 out of 5. But in any other season, it would probably get higher marks than that. This season is just continuing this ridiculous streak of amazing episodes.
Yeah, it's I give this a 4 out of 5. I think it's a worthy sequel. I don't think it's as good as Pusher, but again, there's not different. A lot of episodes that are. It's like it's unfair, I think, to expect something as good as Pusher, because Pusher's one of those like real standout episodes, and it had a different flavor about it as well. But as a character-driven piece, I thought it built on the character really well. And I prefer this a lot more than I do like Tombs. I thought as a sequel to an iconic episode, I think this works better. There's more here, I think, than there is in Tombs. So 4 out of 5 from me as well.
Okay, so tell me a little bit about episode 9, Schizogeny. Schizogeny. No.
Yeah, I pronounce it as schizogeny. So yeah, I don't actually know what that means, but
no.
I think this may be the first bad episode of the season. I don't remember a right lot about it other than kill a tree. I don't know.
Nice.
That might be a spoiler though. That might be a spoiler. Kill a tree. It's there's one other thing I remember about it, and that is a casting choice that had me thinking the episode was going a particular way, and I'll get into that when we get into it, because
Okay. So join us next episode, where we look at the bump in the road of season 5, apparently. According to Brian, will this be another, what was that one? Testos dos...
Oh, do you mean the...
Testos dos...
No, El Mundo Gira.
El Mundo Gira. Is that the one you said was the worst episode in the entire series?
Yes, that's the one I said was the worst for the entire series. Yeah, okay.
Yep, I will never let you forget that. So join us.
Yeah.
Yes, and let's see if episode 9 is similar to that and turns out to be rather good or not. We appreciate you watching and listening. If you'd like to like or leave a review, that would be fantastic. We'd really appreciate that. It allows other people to discover our little podcast. And we will see you next episode for the Schizogeny?
Schizogeny, I think.
Correct us in the comments. Thanks, and I'll see you next time.